Tonight on The Buzz, Matthias Omotola builds strategic virtual communities for Maxon Computing. Today, where social media and online conversations drive success, Matthias shares his thoughts on what we need to know to successfully build online communities for our own projects. Next, Ned Soltz is known around the world as a guru on digital video. Tonight, Ned returns to The Buzz to compare several leading color grading solutions. Next, Emery Wells launched Frame.io in 2014. Frame.io is a media collaboration platform for post-production teams and clients. This week, he successfully landed venture financing for $2.2 million. Tonight, Emery explains how he did it and what we can learn from it. All this, plus a Buzz flashback and Tech Talk looks at the brand new Avid DNxIO. The Buzz starts now.
Tonight's Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Otherworld Computing at MacSales.com and by ZenData at ZenData.com.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative,
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals,
current,
uniting industry experts,
production,
filmmakers,
post-production,
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for creative content producers covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Randy Altman and Mike Horton both have the night off. Here at The Buzz, we are getting excited. Next Thursday is the Geeky Awards, live at Club Nokia in Los Angeles, and The Buzz will be covering it direct from the red carpet. The Geeky Awards is an annual event and an award show by geeks for geeks that combines a live ceremony with geek-focused digital content to create an event that combines Hollywood pizzazz with the fun of a comic or tech convention. Well, when it comes to geeks and the media, we are all over it. We're sending an entire production team led by Madison Mills, whom you may have seen hosting videos for USA Today. We first learned about the Geeky Awards from Kristen Nedopak. She's the executive producer of the event when she was a guest on The Buzz last July. Since then, their guest list has exploded to include Kevin Smith, Katrina Law, Andrew Bowen, Christina Wren, Philip DeFranco, and many more. Join us for The Buzz next week and watch the excitement live from Club Nokia and the Geeky Awards. Thinking about staying in touch, I encourage you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our newsletter is undergoing a redesign. We're adding more industry-relevant articles, faster access to show transcripts, courtesy of TakeOne.tv, a cleaner design, and more relevant information about the show and our guests. Our newsletter gives you an inside look at both the buzz and the industry all in one place. The newsletter is free. All you need to do is to subscribe on the Buzz website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. A new issue is released every Friday. I'll be back with Matthias Omotola right after this.
Still to come on The Buzz, Matthias Omotola, Ned Soltz, Emery Wells, Tech Talk, and Buzz Flashback.
When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting MacSales.com today. That's MacSales.com.
Matthias Omotola is the manager of events and community outreach for Maxon US. There, he oversees strategic development, event marketing, business planning, and user group outreach. Hello, Matthias. Welcome.
Hello, Larry. How are you?
I am delighted. I've known Maxon for a long time, and I love talking about Cinema 4D, so I'm really glad that you're here.
I'm extra glad. Thanks for having me. I always see you at NAB, so I'm lucky to be here in the
but you're
studio.
surrounded by so many people with all the work that you're doing.
It's true.
We're going to talk more about that in just a minute, but before we do, how would you describe your role at Maxon?
Yeah, it's for me, it's a dream come true. First of all,
how long have you been there?
Not long enough. So it really has been a joy. So started, I believe it's like 5 or 6 years. I can't even. It's a year off, but at this point. But when I started and I sat down with Rick Barrett and Paul Babb, Paul the CEO and Rick the VP of Operations there, really fell in love with the small culture and how close it is to artists in the community. So what I'm doing with the company is pretty much all the events. So any events that take place from Canada down to Chile, I'm pretty much involved with the planning, either getting artists there, the entire production, everything else, as well as some original things. One of the things we're doing right now is an 8-city roadshow this fall. So that's completely independent, something that was put together. And when I'm not doing the events, I'm actually reaching out to the community to find who can either present in a future opportunity and a future event, or other partners, so plug-in developers, other technology that would work well with Maxon, and introducing them to the team and developers.
Well, I want to talk about the community part in just a minute, but let's focus on events. We're talking things like SIGGRAPH and NAB. We're not just talking something in a hotel room, correct?
Yeah, very, very, very true. So the biggest ones are NAB, SIGGRAPH, but we're also at GDC, the Game Developers Conference, South by Southwest. Just finished up Adobe Max. We'll be at After Effects World. Anywhere you find artists that are, potentially using Cinema 4D, 3D, you'll find me somewhere nearby or an air, listening to what's happening. But that's where we're at.
So NAB is a show that we both know, unfortunately, way too well. It's massive beyond words to describe. Yeah. Maxon's booth is about the size of Rhode Island. What's it like to put one of those events together? When do you start working, and how much advanced planning are you doing? I mean, walk me through the process.
So, all right, how much time do you have?
More than
So the planning process actually starts now. Right now, I'm already getting phone calls from the NAB show, different locations. So by December, I'm pretty much reaching out to all the talent that I have, but all year long, I'm collecting talent. So there's usually some key guys. I know you had on your show, Casey Hupke. He's presented with us several times. Jace Hansen, I'm still trying to get him on board. He's a busy man, but I'm always searching for talent, and usually by December, January, talent's locked in. But in December, I have already the hotel booked, already have our meeting conference rooms booked, and then it's just about logistics after that. And
now, are you handling staffing and,
top down,
shipping
full production?
So if something goes wrong, it's your fault.
Yeah, it really is, unfortunately. So it's like wrangling cats too, because artists, everybody has different schedules. Sometimes we'll have an artist that has to get pulled last minute because they're on a major project and they just can't miss it. So those things are unfortunate, but luckily there's so many amazing, talented artists nowadays in cinema that we're able to, it's basically a waiting list.
Well, you've got an amazing group of talent that you're pulling from. What criteria do you use to decide if they should be in the booth?
Well, this goes back to community. So it's not just quality of work, it's also quality of person, because there's a lot of people that can do amazing work, but if they're not personable, they're not able to talk to the audience, they're not able to inspire, engage, or explain even what they're doing artistically. It's pretty much like a magician. They can, give a good show, but you can't go home and say, hey, I want to do that too. You're just like, they're amazing. And so
because they're actually representing the company, so there's a huge PR function, even though it's implicit rather than explicit.
Yeah, yes and no. We do allow them. We try and keep the spotlight on the artist. That's one of the things that I think that keeps cinema unique. You don't see a lot of sales pitches from us, and luckily we don't have to. We feel that the artist can do the majority of the talking, and the work that they do kind of speaks volumes for it. So we try and keep as much, keep them as original as possible, because that's what people like.
Now, you're using the word cinema. I assume that means Cinema 4D, which is your lead product.
Yes.
Just making sure that we've got the
right
acronym.
Yes.
When you're You've talked about the role that you have in building communities and the fact that you're using communities to pull your artists from. Why are communities so important?
Oh, man. Well, a lot of reasons. But community basically is going to shape art. You know, if Leonardo da Vinci was born in, Chicago now, would he be Leonardo da Vinci? Or would he just be another Chicago artist? I think a lot has to do with the environment that's created for artists. And our role as people who actually support and engage the community is to provide that environment in which they can flourish. So one of the things like going to events and engaging, inspiring, educating, and motivating, doing those different things that create that environment so artists feel great. They feel like, hey, I'm supported. I have the tools available to me. I have mentors. I have sponsors. There's people who care about me being successful in this, and I have resources that will allow me to succeed so I can express myself. So to me, community is all about environment.
But it could also be argued that art is really a solo endeavor, especially when you're drawing. There's not a group of people that are drawing. It's really just the artist sitting there with the tools and their imagination, creating something that has never existed before. Where does the support come in?
Well, I think when you're looking at pencil art, it's definitely different. One of the things, when I started personally as an artist and I went to school and I wanted to learn 3D animation and VFX, I went and I saw they were teaching a different 3D program and I got my degree in economics.
Of course, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, so that was an easy transition for me.
Like all smart artists, you've got a backup plan B in case you need it.
Yeah, that was a fail-safe, unfortunately. But the thing is, with the tools and technology nowadays, there is a learning curve. So you're not just going to go off into a forest and do 3D animation and learn cinema. You might, if you have some power out there, you could plug in, hit the help system, and go for it. But nowadays, I think for artists, you're going to be pretty much solo most of the time. But you're often working in teams. You're working on collective projects. And the more tools and resources that you have that you can access, as well as the support that you can get from other artists and mentors, that's going to encourage you to be able to push further and maybe even try things that you thought were too technically, challenging before. And that's what a lot of our artists do up on stage at NAB and SIGGRAPH.
Well, you've got artists in a variety of different industry groups. There's video games, there's movie production, there's visual effects. Do they need the same level of support, the same kind of community, or are the communities different depending upon the tasks that they're doing? And are they looking at you for different resources?
Excellent question, and the answer is yes. So there's different, not just community, but there's also culture. So the video game culture is very different from the VFX culture, even though a lot of the cultures actually pull from the same things, a lot of sci-fi inspiration, the medical illustration animation community, completely different than, just general, VFX and motion graphics because they're very technical and they have to tell a story specifically. So it is very different when it comes to different communities.
Well, Maxon has developed a really cool training resource that Paul Babb has talked about several times on the show called Cineversity, which is an online training facility for artists to learn how Cinema 4D works, because it's not for the faint of heart. But one of the things that you guys go after is the beginner.
Definitely.
And how do you encourage when they see the work at NAB of your artists, which is just breathtaking? I can't begin to imagine how they create it. And here I want to start a career in Cinema 4D, and I look at this and I say, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
How do you encourage them to ask questions, and how do you encourage them to get the help that they need so they're less intimidated and more creative?
Definitely. The first thing is, if anybody who's out there like that, I try and engage with them on a one-on-one basis as much as possible. If they meet me on a trade show, I will actually jump into a demo at any given time, because Cinema 4D, luckily, has liberated me from my life of just economics, and now I can actually pick up the tool and do some things. So
that's very cool.
It's the fastest, easiest to learn, the best integration with the tools that they're pretty much probably already using in the Adobe suites and stuff like that. So within 5 minutes, I can usually give people an overview of the interface. Our youngest user that I've come across is 5 years old.
5 years old.
5 years old. It was in South by Southwest. Her dad came up and said, my daughter uses this to make titles for her YouTube channel. And I was blown away.
That's just scary, isn't it? I mean, why do the rest of us bother to show up?
Why we show up? The next generation, folks. So it is that easy. There are just a couple basic things that you need to learn. And once you get started and you learn the interface, and it doesn't get so intimidating, because surprisingly, 3D, we're used to that. 2D and trying to add perspective and everything else, we live in a 3D environment. We have the lights, we have the stage, you know how if a light's farther away, how it casts shadows, all those different things. 3D is that. But then you're just adding the element of time. That's why I Cinema 4D, because you're now able to control all those parameters. So it's a lot to control, but it's something that you're already used to. You're already in the environment.
What's the, you work with business development. Oh, I had to read my question several times to understand it because I'm so fascinated with what you're having to say. I'm not looking at my notes. What's the difference between engaging in business development and creating an experience for customers? Because that one is a sales job, and the other is enhancing the bonds between the company and the end user, which is not the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a hard role to play both sides of, isn't it?
That's where the economics comes in, right? So, yeah, it's definitely a creative position because we do work with a lot of other, partner companies. And on the roadshow, we have, sponsors such as Dell, NVIDIA, Adobe, Grayscale, Gorilla. So we have a ton of sponsors throughout different activities. One of the things is the focus for Maxon, once again, the focus on being on the artist is what could we do between the companies that is going to give a quality experience for the customer, that is going to inspire, that is going to help them out with their workflow, that is going to improve their ability to create. A sales pitch is only as good as what it's actually going to do for the artist. So if I say, hey, this machine is so much faster, does all this other stuff, well, in the nuts and bolts, how is it going to affect my workflow? What is it going to be like in my day-to-day life? And that's one of the things that I think about when we're looking at partners is, hey, that's a tool and a plugin that helps create amazing particles. Great. We have people looking for that. That does fluid simulation. There's different things that we do, well. And Cinema 4D is kind of like a hub where a lot of different things can plug in. It's plugging into your workflow for all different types of things. And, we focus on what else can be plugged in to create that full experience. Even though you can have that full experience with Cinema, the community is always building more tools. So we just find out how to solve problems for them.
Are you seeing the requirements that artists have for Cinema 4D is changing? Are they looking to do or create different things over the last 2 or 3 years, or are they using the tool essentially the same way?
Yeah, I think right now everything's evolving, so it's always in a state of flux, and I think everyone wants to be able to make Jurassic Park and Toy Story. That's what pretty much our number one question is: how do I make Toy Story? How do I make Jurassic Park? And I think,
can you with Cinema 4D?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can do all that, and now you could probably do it just on your laptop. What you have there compared to the hardware you need. And the truth is, we are used in high-end Viz effects and everything else, but there is also the techniques to understand animation. It's not just one click and now my idea's out, but there is a techniques. There's a lighting.
There's not a dinosaur button.
There's a dinosaur preset, so it's in there. You're just gonna have to do a little bit more. But yeah, so that's one of the things is as art and art styles evolve, we're seeing it used all over the place. We're seeing it in VR environments. We're seeing live events. So we're seeing it in unconventional ways. I've been using it recently on a comic book project. So one of my friends, Satine, she's doing a comic book, New Praetorians just came out, and she was looking for environments. So I was able to actually create labs and environments, and then instead of her having to redraw every single line, she was able to use the perspective that was already built. So backgrounds, there's endless uses. Anything that you can think of, you can actually use. So it's evolving a lot.
We're seeing the art is changing, and I'm seeing the industry is changing, especially since 2008 with the financial conditions. Are you seeing the environment for trade shows changing?
Oh, definitely.
How so?
Unfortunately. So somewhat. I think now, just seeing at NAB, and when I first started, NAB was very segmented. So you had Central Hall, which had all of our, satellite information and things there. In South Lower, you had most of our software guys, and then you had a section for audio and everything else. Now it's pretty much everyone everywhere. So
that's because everybody was going to South Lower and the other halls were empty. That's the reason.
It's very true. But I think one of the things that happens is it's becoming like the 90s internet where you have nothing but pop-up ads. Everyone's just fighting for attention. So if they can get a sponsor dollar here to move and bump it over, And, I think there's some good and bad. It's good because the trade shows continue to be successful, so we have them and we can have the networking.
But only at the larger sizes. I'm seeing small shows are struggling to succeed.
Yeah, there are, smaller shows that have shut their doors as well. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but that's where I think the larger shows get more noisy because everyone's just trying to pack in there, where I think the user experience would actually go up if more of the larger companies would support more of the smaller shows, and as well as the larger shows stay segmented. Because if you're an audio guy, you don't really need the satellite. So walking by,
but they are so cool to look at.
It is, but it's not an impulse buy. No. So if I'm walking by, I'm not going to drop 150
I almost bought a $3 million helicopter.
Oh, well, yeah, that's an impulse
There was
buy.
no money in a checkbook, but I would have bought it had I had it. Yes, absolutely. What projects are you working on next? You buried in NAB next year? You got something coming up before that?
Well, right now, it's all the road show. So starting October 20th, we're going to be at L.A., so we go from L.A. to Portland that week. So it's the 20th to 22nd, L.A., Portland, and then we're in Seattle, and then we're in San Fran, and then we're in Vancouver, New York, Atlanta, and then finish up in D.C. So, and I have trade shows going on at New York at the same time as the road show. So there's some overlap there, but this is something that we wanted to do for a while.
You'll sleep when you get back.
Oh, yeah, on weekends.
For people that want information about the trade shows or Maxon in general, where can they go on the web?
They can just go to maxon.net. Yeah,
Maxon.net, not Maxon.com.
Exactly. You'll find the trucking company there.
Matthias Omatola, correct?
Very correct.
Is event coordinator overall with Maxon. And Matthias, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
today.
so much, Larry.
Take care.
Still to come on The Buzz, Ned Soltz, Emery Wells, Tech Talk, and Buzz Flashback.
If you need long-term archiving for your video content, then you should look at ZenData. They specialize in providing secure, long-term storage of video content with a low cost per terabyte. The company has a variety of archive solutions that range from external LTO drives that can connect to your laptop to multi-petabyte storage systems using huge robotic libraries. ZenData systems will store your content on LTO or Sony optical disc archive cartridges. And with their next release, they also provide an option for archiving to the Amazon cloud. They offer great compatibility with many of the third-party applications used in the media and entertainment industry, including most media asset management systems. ZenData has hundreds of installations around the world, from Los Angeles to Mongolia. So if protecting your assets is important to you, visit zendata.com. That's XENDATA.com.
Ned Soltz is an author, editor, educator, and consultant on all things related to digital video. He's also a contributing editor for Digital Video Magazine, a moderator on Two-Pop and Creative Cow forums, and a regular correspondent here on The Buzz. Whew. And today, we're going to talk with Ned about color grading. Hello, Ned. Welcome back.
Hi, Larry. It's great to be back. It's just been ages, it seems.
You know, you never call, you never write. You know, I'm really depressed.
I know. No, you and the whole family says that.
Well, I want you consumed with guilt.
Oh, I am.
Ned, when it comes to color grading, my first thought always turns to Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve. Is there anything else in color grading?
Oh, Larry, there is just absolutely so much that this time I actually am speaking from notes, because I must have about 15 to 20 products that I need to rattle off just in my few moments that I have with you. There's so many possibilities, but I really want to take it really back to the beginning here, because a lot of times in this brand new world that we have of people dealing with log footage, of raw footage, of moving from linear footage but still shooting linear footage, people really don't fully understand where we are and what the process is. So I think, first of all, before we do this and jump into some products, I want to talk about a process.
Okay.
If we're dealing with log footage, our first task is to delog that footage.
Oh,
We may
wait,
use
hold it. Ned,
lookup
stop a second. When we're talking log footage, first give me a quick definition of what log is, and is there different variations of log, or is it all log C?
Well, they're very different variations. Panasonic has its version now of a V-Log. There's a log C that Canon has. Sony has S-Log, S-Log2, S-Log3. Everybody has their variant of it. The JVC 300 camera has now just adopted a JVC log. And it's essentially the way in which the top of the curve is compressed to be able to get more values into that same range.
Meaning, hold up, slow down. Meaning top of the curve means highlights?
It's going to mean highlights, right? It's going to mean those highlights are going to be compressed in that log. It means that there is going to be a removal of saturation and tonalities. All the values are there in that curve, but that curve is going to have to be turned into a linear curve in order to be able to be visualized, to be displayed, to be seen as anything other than just a washed out, almost black and white image.
Okay.
Different cameras and different manufacturers employ different logs and different techniques. And so when we're dealing with this log footage, we have to look at software that's going to decode specific to the log of the camera. That's going to be accomplished by LUTs, by lookup tables, that are going to understand the characteristics of that camera and of its curve, and return that log curve then to what we're calling the Rec 709, the video curve, which is going to then have all of those values. So once we've done that process, then the next process is really color correction. And many of us have been doing this for years, like those of us that started back with Adobe Premiere ages ago and then moved to Final Cut. I jumped on the bandwagon at Final Cut 1.2.5. We were dealing with a 3-way color corrector and a 2-way color corrector, and we're correcting. And we're going to express that now in terms of lift, gamma, and gain. That is the blacks, the midtones, and the highlights. We're going to color correct. And only after we've done the color correction then are we going to put our artistic grade on. And that's where many of these plugins and options and everything else that's available to us are going to come in, not just for the correction, not just for the D-log, but then finally when we're ready to put some kind of artistic grade on the process.
Okay,
Now,
wait, slow down. So we're going to convert our log footage, or we're going to convert the raw footage. So you're talking conversion before color correction, or are we going to be doing the same? We're going to do it all at one pass?
Well, we're going to do that first. The first thing we're going to do if we have raw footage is we're going to what is known as debayer that footage, which is actually, to put it in other terms, it's like developing the negative. If we try to talk about debayering and debayering routines, we'll never get to a single piece of software tonight. If we're dealing with raw or log footage, we're then going to be delogging that footage before we begin any color correction at all. That's step number one. Then step number two is going to be our color correction for everything from white balance to shadows to midtones to our highlights, and get the image the way we want that to look. And then finally, we're going to put some kind of artistic grade on that footage.
Okay.
Now,
So we've got a workflow going on, and you're saying that we can do it in multiple different pieces of software. So keep going.
Correct. So I'll keep going. So, of course, the first place you're going to do that, particularly if you're dealing already with linear footage, Rec 709 footage, you're not dealing with log footage, you're not dealing with raw footage, because that adds to the post time and everything else. You're going to be dealing with your nonlinear editor. So let's take Final Cut Pro, for example. The color boards in Final Cut Pro 10 are remarkably powerful tools that a lot of people don't fully appreciate.
How so?
Remarkably powerful.
How so?
How so? Because of your ability to move those values around, because of your ability to visualize that on the scopes. to be able to take that output then to a reference monitor where you're able to really see how that video is going to be displayed in the medium in which you're going to be delivering it, depending on which auxiliary hardware you have. Those color boards are very powerful. Now we'll move over to Adobe. There's a SpeedGrade. I personally have not gotten into SpeedGrade as much as I can, but I know that a certain Larry Jordan sells a tutorial on how really to get into SpeedGrade. And I think that's got to be mentioned as well. Again, powerful. But now in the latest 2015 of Adobe CC, you have the Lumetri layer that can be applied. And in that Lumetri layer, you can then click and apply whatever lookup table you want, because it's these lookup tables that also help delog your footage or put looks upon your footage and everything else.
Ned, I agree with you. I agree with you. And that Lumetri panel that's new with the 2015 Premiere has an amazing amount of functionality in it that I was not expecting when I first saw it. It does far more than a simple three-way color corrector.
Oh, yes. It's amazing. I begin to wonder whether Adobe is really beginning to migrate more of the SpeedGrade functions actually into Premiere Pro, and that's probably part of the Adobe roadmap. Because, again, remember, color correction is something any idiot like me can do. Color grading is now all of a sudden something that's really a highly specialized area, and people devote their whole lives to being colorists. And all of a sudden now all of the tools here, it's like you got your private pilot's license, and now, wow, I'm going to take my hand at flying an Airbus A380, just because I can fly that Piper Cub. I think that's probably part of the analogy of it.
Well, you're going to fly that A380 without me on board. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. So
well, they say it's so automated, you just have to button and it flies itself.
So we've talked about SpeedGrade, which is connected with Premiere. We've talked about Final Cut 10 for color grading, and Final Cut 10 really revolutionized the whole idea of three color wheels back with Final Cut 2, Final 1.2. Right. But there's more. What else do we have?
Well, then we've got Avid Symphony, of course. We shouldn't really leave Avid out of the equation because it's still there as almost the de facto studio application. And although Symphony is getting a little long in tooth, for those who are Avid users, Baselight has a $500 plugin. You've got the multi-$100,000 Baselight systems that are dedicated color systems. But for about $500, Avid users can add Baselight, which brings you much of the power and functionality of the Baselight system. Of course, it's on a clip-by-clip basis. It's a little more difficult to work with, but it's there, and it's certainly there for Avid users. But I want to move into other things that are available, both in terms of plugins or LUTs that you can buy. So right now there is something relatively new. A guy who's trading as Rocket Rooster sells collections of LUTs that range anywhere from $5 to $50. Color Finale for $99 from Denver Riddle, Color Grading Central, is yet another plugin for Final Cut 10, but also Denver Riddle has a number of different LUTs that are available, and most of these are going to be more in the looks types of areas. But if you really want to get into looks, there is Magic Bullet. And the Magic Bullet Suite 12.1 just released has looks, Colorista 3, which is one of the most powerful of all color correction, Magic Bullet Film, which allows you to put emulsions and varying film looks, Magic Bullet Cosmo, and Magic Bullet Mojo. And these plugins work in all of your hosts, including the OpenFX, which is for DaVinci Resolve, as well as for Fanuc. But probably we don't probably have a lot of Nuke compositing users that might be tuning in tonight. The downside of Magic Bullet, and I love it, it's extraordinarily powerful. The downside is for those of us that take our video out through a Blackmagic or through a Kona card to see what it's going to visualize like on a reference monitor, you can't do that in looks. Looks isn't going out. You're going to be judging basically on the computer screen. And then only after you apply that in your NLE are you going to be able to go back out. So it could be a little cumbersome. But let me move on right now, Larry. Another package that's one of my favorites for $299 is called Film Convert. Film Convert is a standalone. as well as plugins for everything available. And it not only will do your color grading, lift, gain, and gamma, it also has film scans of varying film emulsions. So you can have varying Kodak emulsions, Fuji emulsions. You can control grain. In other words, this is going to give you a very film type of look. I'm going to move on. Film Convert, as I say, is one of my favorites. Something similar to that is something called Koji Color, Koji. You can buy the Koji LUTs for $99, but the full Koji plugin set is $899. I think they do an even better job of film emulsions than does Film Convert. Now, in the $49 range, for those who are Final Cut Pro and Adobe users, the FX Factory family of plugins that run under FX Factory, they're virtually unlimited. I mean, I love the Hawaii Color, which gives you on-screen controls in Final Cut 10, and Auto Grade and Auto Match. DaVinci Resolve 12 now allows you to match scenes, but that's in a $49 plugin as well for Final Cut from Hawaii Color under FX Factory. Natris has levels and curves and contrast. Lawn Road, Color Precision. Fix has something called Color Looks. And now, finally, if we're in the Sony ecosystem, Sony has a free product called Catalyst Browse, which reads the formats from virtually any Sony camera and allows you to change from log to Rec 709, but it affects that globally. They have a paid package called Catalyst Prepare and Catalyst Edit. It's $400. It reads all the metadata and everything else. Very useful if you're in the Sony ecosystem. But again, you're able to do a basic grade with that. And then export that basic grade through Edit into your NLE. And of course, if you're in Red pioneered all of this with the free Red software to be able to do what colorists called and Red called a one light, where in Red you are taking that raw material and beginning to develop that and putting all of your looks and everything else onto it. So we're just overburdened and overwhelmed with software right now, just like we're overburdened and overwhelmed with hardware, and it can be a very confusing and a very daunting process. And DaVinci blew it wide open by taking one of the de facto standards for the whole industry and making it free. And even the $1,000 version, when you look at a multi-$100,000 DaVinci system, which you can now get for $1,000 in software and run it on some garden variety iMac or HP or Dell workstation, or even less of a quality intensive machine. I mean, the possibilities out there for us are amazing. So my advice here is basically pick the system you want, learn it, become adept at it, and figure out how you're going to make something look the way you want it to look. That's really what this grade is about. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's how do you want your final production to look?
Well, Ned, there is no shortage of color grading software out there. I'm really impressed. Your report has been phenomenal. For people that need more information, can they go on the web somewhere to get a sense of what you're thinking?
Well, you can, of course, always look for my writings and the writings of my colleague Oliver Peters, who writes extensively about this in Digital Video Magazine and Television Technology, and that would be at www.creativeplanetnetwork.com. That's one of the best places.
And Ned Soltz is the man that's writing it. And Ned, thanks for joining us today. The report was phenomenal. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Still to come on The Buzz, Emery Wells, Tech Talk, and Buzz Flashback.
My focus for this class is not to teach you how to design with Photoshop. Design is beyond my skills, but I can show you how we can take existing images and edit them. And talking about digital photography and still images and manipulating them in Photoshop is what today's session is all about.
Welcome to Tech Talk, sponsored by KeyCodeMedia.
The long-awaited new I/O box from Avid, the DNxIO, is here. And here's the scoop on it, what to expect and what to look out for. At NAB this year, Avid showed us their new I/O box, the DNxIO. Although it was behind glass and probably made out of balsa wood, it reassured the Avid community that there would indeed be an updated way to capture and play out from within Media Composer without having to rely on a third-party interface. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? The DNxIO box, or Bob as we affectionately call it, is made by Blackmagic Design, who's been manufacturing I/O cards and Bobs for many years. They've also been part of the Avid Open I/O initiative since the beginning. The DNxIO, at its core, is the UltraStudio 4K Extreme, which coincidentally just started shipping from Blackmagic as well. Connectivity to the unit is pretty simple, either via a Thunderbolt connection, which isn't included in the box, or via a host card inserted into your computer, much like the older Mojo DX and Nitrous DX. It is cross-platform and works with Media Composer 8.4 and above. Yes, this means that with 4K-enabled versions of Media Composer, you can play out 4K, HD, and SD resolutions from within Media Composer via either HDMI or the onboard 3, 6, or 12G SDI spigots. For those of you who flank your Media Composer with an army of other software solutions, you're in luck. Final Cut 10, Adobe Creative Cloud, and of course, Blackmagic's Resolve can play out using the Bob as well. The DNxIO also has a handful of features not found in its UltraStudio cousin. First, it's purchased and supported through Avid or through your friendly neighborhood Avid reseller. Secondly, DNxHR, the new codec for Media Composer that supports resolutions larger than HD, will have hardware acceleration on the unit. Hopefully, Avid will enable this by the end of the year. There is also talk of adding H.265 acceleration, which is notoriously slow to encode on just CPU alone. I expect these features to be turned on with a software update for anyone under current Avid support. Lastly, the DNxIO also comes with a free Fusion Connect plugin for Media Composer. Avid has published an FAQ about this unit, as well as a PDF comparing the DNxIO with the Mojo DX and the Nitrous DX. You can find them on the Avid website. Thanks to some early fieldwork by our engineers at KeyCodeMedia, here is what you need to know about the unit. First, not all resolutions are supported, most notably 720p running at 2398, 25, and 2997. Also absent in the first release are some standard def, NTSC, and PAL progressive formats. However, interlace formats are 100% supported. There are also some audio limitations. No SPDIF on the Bob, 48K audio sample rates are the lone format currently supported, and several audio mapping and mixing options are also unavailable in this first release. Some key features on the Avid Nitrous DX that are missing on the DNxIO hardware include hardware deinterlacing, universal mastering, and closed caption playout. Most of these restrictions seem to be software-based as opposed to a limitation of the hardware, so the likelihood of a software update to fix them is pretty good. What I dig about this collaboration is that it reinforces Avid's intent to become more open. Blackmagic has sold many more I/O devices than Avid ever will, so it's good to build on the strengths of strong players. You can buy the DNxIO standalone for $38.99 or bundled with Media Composer for $48.99. Here are 2 links to help you learn more. The top one is to an Avid FAQ about the DNxIO, and the lower one is a comparison of the different Avid hardware units. So, dear viewer, will the DNxIO Bob work for you? Or are you going to go with an AGA device? Or are you even going to ride out your DX hardware as long as possible? Let us know. I'm Michael Kammes with KeyCodeMedia.
Emory Wells launched Frame.io in the summer of 2014. Frame.io is a media collaboration platform designed for post-production teams and their clients to collaborate. And this whole idea of collaboration tools and finding the money to fund them fascinates me. Hello, Emery. Welcome.
Hey, Larry. How are you?
Well, I'm delighted to be talking to you because one of the things I want to learn more about is what Frame.io is, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about how you found the money to pay for it. But start by describing Frame.io.
Sure. So Frame.io is a media collaboration platform. It's a place to upload any source media or work in progress into a private workspace where you can invite your team and your clients to collaborate. And we're really replacing the hodgepodge of different services that all of us have been using for years. We're using something for file sharing like Dropbox or Box or YouSendIt or Hightail or FTP. But those services are really crummy when you want to view something online. So we tend to use Vimeo or YouTube, and we password protect it and then distribute links around in an email and try to communicate in a static email around moving visual content, which always leads to lots of confusion. Not to mention that you have multiple versions and many iterations that you go through before it's done. So on the typical job, it's not uncommon to have 5, 6, 7 different services in the mix. You got stuff all over the place. You got conversations all over the place. Nobody can keep track of anything. So that's what Frame.io solves. We bring that all into one cohesive interface.
Well, I'm already depressed just listening to you list the problems, much less the solution.
Yeah.
But I swear, a week doesn't go by that another company doesn't rear its ugly head saying, hey, we're a collaboration software and you need to use us. And without naming any names, what makes Frame.io different? Why should somebody even consider you?
Sure. So I think there's a couple things that make us different. I think first and foremost, Frame.io was actually started as an internal project at my previous post-production company. We started building something to solve our own problem. It was actually not even originally intended to be a separate company. And I think that that informs our product choices every step of the way. And I think that's resonated with people. People use the product and they say, oh, these guys get it. Like this is how it should work, because not only have we done it for years, and I've been in the media industry for 16 years and worn every hat there is to wear. I've been an editor and a motion graphics artist and a colorist and a producer and a director and a DP, and I've produced original content for network television. I've done it all, so I know all the pain points across all the different job titles. And so when we started building it as an internal tool for ourselves, it's not surprising that we were solving the problems that pretty much everybody else was having. So I think that's the primary thing that's really resonated. And then I think second, I think we've actually made this a tool that you want to use. We've made it kind of fun. We've made it kind of sexy. There's a lot of tools out there that have tried to do similar things, and they're kind of for the most part they're either too utilitarian or they got the pricing wrong. They're too expensive to be accessible to the masses, and we know that this industry is really dominated by the smaller shops, the 1 person to 5 people teams. The creative industry is predominantly made up of these small teams, and we are also we control the mind share of the industry. So it'd be great if we made a product that was accessible to big Hollywood studios and to bigger companies, but it's guys like you, Larry, that are influencers on Twitter, and the people that are out there doing the real kind of nuts and bolts work every day. We're the ones that spread the word throughout the community of, hey, this is a tool that we all want to get behind and we all want to use. And I think the industry has really wanted to have an industry standard. We'd like to all say, okay, this is the tool we're going to use for all this. We're going to learn it, and everyone's going to be comfortable with it. And I think that we've started to kind of get a lot of support from the community saying, Frame.io gets it, and I think this is the one that we should support.
I think it's, I want to take this a step farther, because first you came up with a great idea based on your experience in 2014, and you started the company. And then you suddenly realized that you've got a company that's data intensive and bandwidth intensive, and that is not cheap. And developing that stuff is not cheap. So what you've done recently is you just closed some venture funding. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, we raised $2.2 million. That was, our round was led by Excel Partners, who many are familiar with being one of the early investors of Facebook and Slack and Dropbox and tons of great companies. Lynda, they're an investor of. So they really get our space.
Well, first, congratulations. That's a major accomplishment, and it's a lot of work. So major congratulations. But walk me through the process. How did you go about getting funding? How long did it take? And what were the steps? For people that haven't gone through that sometimes painful ordeal, what's it like?
Yeah, I guess it was a bit of a mystery to me as well a couple of years ago. I've had two dreams in life. One is to be a filmmaker, and the other is to have a tech startup. And so I've followed and studied, the tech startup world very closely and what the venture funding process is like. But, it still was a bit of a mystery to me as to how, you go from kind of reading about how it gets done to actually getting it done. And I think one of the things I've learned is, basically nobody's going to fund you until you deserve it. You have to put yourself in a position where, you have to do the legwork to put yourself in a position where you're actually something that an investor wants. So it really doesn't work the other way around. And I think that's where most people think, well, it's really, really hard to raise money. And I guess in a sense that's true. But if you are something that investors want, if you've built an opportunity that investors want to invest in, it's actually really easy. And in our case, it was really hard until it was really easy. So we had to work really, really hard to get our company to a place where it was something that investors were interested in. And by the time we closed our round a couple months ago. We just announced it this week, but the round was actually closed a few months ago. And in this experience, when we met with investors, it actually, we were super fortunate where we kind of had our pick of who to work with, and our round was oversubscribed, meaning we had more people wanting to give us money than we wanted to take because we only want to give up so much of our company. So it's a very odd experience to have people that want to give you money that you have to turn down. It's a very, very strange, especially from really incredible people, people that you really respect. But that wasn't our kind of initial experience when we had maybe maybe over a year ago, a little over a year ago, we met with investors, and the reaction was, wow, phenomenal product. This is before we launched. It was like, phenomenal product, but we think you're a little bit too early, and come back when you've, proven more. And to me, it was at the time a little bit confusing because I don't know if you follow the tech startup world and you read TechCrunch and, you read every day about some company that's getting funded, and so many of them, you think, how do they get funded? Like it's maybe some silly idea to you or something, and it just seems like anybody can get funded in these if they have an app idea, but that's actually really not the case. So it's very, very rare that a pre-launched product will get funded if the founders don't have a previous track record of building a successful startup. So the ones when you hear like, oh, this company that is in stealth mode that's not going to launch for a year, that has some product that sounds really not useful, the reason they get funded is because the founders usually have a really solid track record. If you are an unknown person, then you have to build the value before any investor is going to.
One of the things that we've heard about,
and that's in our case, that's what we had to do.
One of the things we've heard about venture funding is that you have to give up control of your company to be able to get, especially initial funding. I don't want to know percentages. That's not what I'm asking. But are you still running the company, or are they telling you what you have to do?
Oh, no. We still run the company 100%. So actually, none of our investors have any control really whatsoever over anything. They have very little governance at this stage, which is a seed stage. It's called the seed stage. There's a couple different rounds of funding. So you typically would have like an angel round, which is like the very kind of first money into a company. Maybe it's $50,000, maybe it's $100,000. In our case, we didn't have to do that because I was able to fund it myself for a while, and it was really kind of incubated in my previous post-production company. We were building as an internal tool, so it was kind of incubated in that company, and we didn't have to take outside kind of angel investment. And then you get to the seed stage, which is the stage that we're at, which is usually up to a couple $1 million, and you don't really give up control at that point. Investors don't want to get in your hair at that point. I mean, we're still a small company. We need to move quickly. We need to make decisions quickly, and they don't want to be making those decisions for you. They want to invest in people that are going to make the right decisions. Much later, when you take on maybe 10 million, 50 million, then you're bringing on investors. You're giving a board seat, so they have some say in the company. But at this stage, no, they don't.
So what are you going to spend the money on?
It's really going to primarily go to people to build our engineering team and primarily our product team. So we're not super focused on sales right now. We're really more focused on building the product. So it's going to be hiring and our infrastructure has gotten kind of expensive. So continue to be able to pay for our infrastructure, but most of it just goes to hiring.
As you look back on it, what did you learn during the funding process that you didn't know? What's been sort of the most eye-opening moment, and what's the key lesson that you learned?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a lot like dating. You go on a lot of dates, and you're like, well, I kind of like this person. We kind of like each other. Maybe there's a little bit of mutual interest, but then you meet somebody, and it just clicks, and it's like, oh, you get it. It all makes sense now. It just, like... so a lot of the initial investors that we met over a year ago, maybe they didn't have like a great deal of experience in our industry. So explaining the product to them was a little tricky, and then maybe they didn't get it. So I think one of the things we learned is like when you kind of meet the right partnership, because this is a partnership. I mean, they don't have control, but we are going to continue to be working with these people, and as we continue to work together, then they would have more control. So you want to make sure that you're really, really choosing the right partner. But I guess actually the thing that I learned most after pitching to all these different investors, and it was crazy. It was like pitching to these billionaires and people that run these major tech companies, and it was a really, really interesting experience. And I learned how to pitch, which the thing that I was not doing in the beginning was I wasn't giving my pitch in the form of a story. And it made it very difficult for people that maybe were not super familiar with our space or the problem to understand. So I would explain the problem, but not explain it in a story that kind of a narrative story that made sense. And we're all filmmakers, so you would think that that's maybe how I would have approached it from the beginning. But you have to, when you're pitching to an investor, they meet tons of people, and they get pitched by tons of people. And the first thing that they need to do is they kind of need to place you in their brain. Okay, who is this person, and why are they the right person to be tackling this problem in this industry? So by kind of telling your own story and what led you to build the product, and then explaining the problems in the form of a story, allowed me to communicate our pitch much more effectively. And then the other thing I learned about pitching is that you really are just trying to, in the process of pitching, you're trying to remove risk. Investors are always thinking about risk. And so you need to, in the process of your pitch, you need to remove the technical risk. Do you have the technical team that can pull this off? You have to remove the market risk. Is there a market large enough to sustain a company that can grow substantially? You have to remove the business model risk. Is there a business model around this that can make money? So really, it's all about removing risk, and you have to hit those points through your pitch.
So you've got to tell it in a story and make it sound like the risk is limited.
Well, yeah, the risk is limited, but you want to hit those specific points.
Interesting. Emery, for people that want to learn more about your company or sign up for your services, where can they go on the web?
They can go to frame.io.
I was hoping you'd remember that. Thank you so much. Emery, Wells is the CEO and co-founder of Frame.io. Emery, this has been a wonderful chat. Thank you for sharing your time.
Sure, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
It's time for a BuZZ flashback. 5 years ago today.
We launched September 13th and then immediately received a cease and desist from a local channel because we're carrying what's called OTA or over-the-air broadcast channels out of New York and Seattle. And then we replied back to them explaining that we're not infringing on copyright. The cease and desist claimed copyright infringement, even though that there's the legal ability to retransmit.
This was a BuZZ flashback.
You know, thinking about that IVI quote, I remember that conversation from 5 years ago where they had emulated, but not completely, the idea of the original cable television where they had shared antennas. And ultimately, IVI lost their court battle and went out of business. We've followed a number of technology companies that have not been successful, just as we follow a number of technology companies like Frame.io that we hope will become successful. It's watching the industry grow and change over all these years has been a fascinating experience, and we're sharing some of that history with you every week as we chat with and look at the BuZZ flashback, which is, it's fun. We spend time during the week thinking about what we want to talk about and how we want to highlight it, and I always enjoy seeing it every week on the show. I want to thank our guests for tonight. We started with Matthias Omatola. He's the manager of events and community outreach at Maxon. Ned Soltz, the contributing editor for Digital Video Magazine, and Emery Wells, the co-founder and CEO of Frame.io. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And don't forget, sign up for our free weekly show newsletter. Visit with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. We love your conversations and truly enjoy hearing from you. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our producer is Serena Catania. Our engineering team is led by Megan Paulos, includes Ed Golia, Hannah Dean, Lindsay Lubert, and Brianna Murphy. On behalf of Mike Horton, my name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for joining us for the Digital Production Buzz.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical support to the worldwide computer industry since 1988. And by Zen Data, who provides highly competitive digital video archive solutions.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from the Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching the Digital Production Buzz.